Hello and welcome to day 27. My name is Tammy Davis. Wait a minute. Day 27 of what? Oh yeah, 30 days of essential oils. That's right. You probably already knew that since you're here and you clicked on to watch this. Anyway, yeah, it's 27th day of 30 days of essential oils. This month has actually gone by really quickly. So thank you for all of you who have been tuning in, commenting, just very much appreciated all of this. This is my life's journey and I'm happy to share it with you. But that said, while I did a segment like this back earlier in the year, and I titled it 31 Days of Essential Oils. And as I was going through all of it, I'll be damned if I didn't discover that I've actually done one oil twice. I did tangerine the first time around, and I did tangerine this time around. So I need you guys are owed an extra oil, right? We get an extra oil in this. So this would be 30 plus 1 days of essential oils. That's how this is going to go. Anyway, I'm your mentor and guide. Really, really appreciate you joining me. And for those of you who are just tuning in, please know that this comes to you from after almost over 30 years of experience working with oils, having a background in pharmacology, specializing in epigenetics, especially the study of plant constituents as they relate, that's Nymeria, they relate to human health and drug development. Now, I'm not really specific on using them at that level because that's too targeted. Just to kind of briefly summarize it here, I'm very much about working with systems and definitely paying attention to how these oils affect epigenetic function. The epigenome is designed to adapt, meaning it's designed to alter itself according to the specimen's needs. Therefore, if it's time for you to go to sleep, if it's time for you to start your menstrual cycle, if it's time for you to wake up, okay, if it's, all of these factors. Let's say you just got done working out. You need to generate some hormones, growth hormones and repair hormones and so forth. So these internal processes are consistently affected or influenced by the epigenome. They influence your needs influence epigenetic activity. Okay, so I'm saying all of this because there's a lot of tests out here right now. We have these saliva tests and they come back with their reports and they're color coded, right? You've got green, yellow, and red. The green means everything's good. Yellow means, you got one that's been turned off. You got one that's on, that's not so good. But the double red, ooh, that's bad, right? We have no idea what is going on in your system, although all that is a snapshot of that day and that can change. Now, this is part of the reason why it's very beneficial to adjust our thought processes, to adjust the way we react to things, and learning how to respond. This is very, very beneficial in doing that, because when we are able to break the cycle, so to speak, of habitual behavior, of habitual reactions, the habitual thinking, that automatic. I mean, there's something to be said for neurobics. That's one thing that I've liked to practice most of my life because, well, truthfully, I developed a methodology for myself because I don't want to do anything the same. And, we know that by definition, repeating the same behavior, expecting different results is insanity, right? Well, to me, just repeating yourself all the time, just consistently having the same routine. There's something to be said for routine, although it is very comforting and predictable, especially for those of us who don't do well with change. It's nice to have something along those lines, right? That we're comfortable with and familiar with, and that we can predict what's going to happen in the day. And yet, that is actually damaging on a very deep cellular level. And I mean this because the more the habitual our activities, the more habitual our thinking. And the more habitual our thinking, that habitual thinking is very involved with or linked to our emotions and the way we react to circumstances. And so all of a sudden now our emotional reactions become automatic. I mean, even though it might be an entirely different situation, we are now reacting out something. And that will maintain the epigenome, so to speak, in a more chronically, it'll just it'll consistently influence the epigenome to be functioning in a certain way. And so that said, it's very possible if you have like what they would call a double defect, like the double, the red in the red zone, it's possible to have one of those, and it may not be to your advantage. And then again, it actually might be to your advantage. So before I go that any further, just as a reminder, so the epigenome is the function of the epigenome is adaptability. It is responding to your body's needs in the moment, and a lot of the internal processes will affect this. Now, as a result of that, if we habitually go through life, we are essentially encouraging the epigenome to kind of flow in a certain manner, okay? Because mind-body connection is very, very tight. At the same time, because it adapts accordingly, there are times when a gene receptor will get deactivated for these processes that I was talking about earlier, okay? Let's just 86 the idea of habitual behavior, and just now, and like we were talking about, and let's just say for the sake of discussion, that now we just have a process that needs to occur in our body. So that means something's happening, or something is meant to happen, so the body will deactivate a certain receptor, which will then fundamentally alter the way the rest of the system works. So that means there's going to be a series of switches being flipped, so to speak, activation, deactivation, in order to accomplish the task at hand. And then ideally, all of those changes are reversible. Okay, so they're only become irreversible if we take medication on a long-term basis that are affecting these genetic receptors, and they're constantly being turned off, and it's possible that they get stuck on. Although it is a way you can modify this fairly simply with oils. That's the reason why we're even here. And another reason why they remain potentially irreversible, or seemingly irreversible, is, like I said, when we get into that habitual behavior, habitual thinking, habitual reactions. Okay, so that said, the purpose to all of this work and what I share here is something that you're not going to typically find in a book or on a website, because it comes with an excessive amount of research, because I have no words to put to it other than I just feel really very called to understand this so that I can share this with you, because this is very important information that we stand to benefit from. And that's the reason why I share it here. Now, when it comes to today's oil, which is Ylang, and you might pronounce it, I know people pronounce it differently. I just pronounce it Ylang because I know the Y can sound like an E, and then we just have Lang, right? There are various types, but just for, this is just basically Ylang Complete is how I would describe it. And Ylang is actually, it's an incredibly floral oil. A lot of people don't particularly care for it. I mean, it's great if it's been maybe blended with, if we're talking about fragrance, if you blend it with something like vetiver or spruce. Spruce and Ylang actually go really, really well together when it comes to fragrancing. There's just a really nice complement. But just by itself, it's not exactly an all-time favorite. Now, there are some people who really do dig florals, and so they like the smell of Ylang. So it's kind of, it's iffy and at best. But that said, it's actually a very superb oil. It is one that you can actually use for sleep because of the synergistic value of it. Provides a very calming effect to the body. So much so that, like I said, well, you can use it for sleep. And I'm just trying to say, I want to think how I want to say this, because the bulk of the constituents in Ylang are cannabinoids. And it has a number of cannabinoids, and it is a very highly, it's made up primarily of sesquiterpenes. Sesquiterpenes are known to be able to cross the blood-brain barrier. So Ylang has an immediate effect on the brain. and helping to regulate mental health, mental state. Now, please understand, when it comes to me and when I talk about mental health, I'm talking about physical health too, because it doesn't stop here. I don't know what it is about people, like we think this is our head and this is our brain and this is our moods and our emotions and this is completely separate down here. Nothing could be further from the truth, because everything up here, everything that the brain produces affects every single function in our body. So although a neurochemical might be used for moods and emotions, it's also used for other processes like sleep, like bowel movements. Most of the neurotransmitters that we recognize from moods and excitability and rewards and so forth all impact the bowels, every single one of them. They all have their role in the way the intestines work. They also have an influence on the kidneys. They have an influence on the heart. So brain health, I'm going to say it that way, brain health is required for physical health. If we cannot affect and improve the way our brain is, actually work to affect our brain health, we have the ability to tell ourselves, this is not real. This is not really happening right now. I'm only predicting something. Breaking free from that predictable thought process of trying to break free. There's another reason why, breaking free from the habitual idea of consistently predicting an outcome, because you're keeping yourself terrorized, truthfully. And the whole idea here is to restore inner peace. And so with an oil that is jam-packed full of sesquiterpenes that has an immediate influence on the brain, all you have to do is smell it. It's all you have to do to inhale. And the interesting thing is that in other videos, I've talked about the olfactory receptors and how they are found throughout the entire body, not just in the nose. The only reason they're called olfactory is because that's where they were first discovered. Same thing goes for aromatic compounds. I did an entire audio for Mixcloud about going fragrance-free. And the idea is that aromatic compounds don't necessarily have a scent. They just don't. They're only called aromatic compounds because when we first discovered aromatic compounds, the first two we found have a scent, but other ones do not. So therefore, fragrance-free does not always mean that you are protected, because there are aromatic compounds out there that you cannot smell, and they are influencing your olfactory system in the tissues of your body. Now, these are G-coupled protein receptors. And so that said, you have the ability to, just by simply inhaling Ylang, you have the ability to influence brain activity. And so the influence that Ylang has profoundly has is on the endocannabinoid system, because as I said, it comes packed with, besides the sesquiterpenes, they're cannabinoids. And that's a significant thing, because the only reason they're called cannabinoids, well, first of all, they're found at so like the olfactory system and like aromatic compounds. The reason why this video is like, the quality of this lighting is terrible, and that's because it's really gray here today. I'm sorry. But that said, it's the reason they're called cannabinoids is because cannabinoid chemicals, cannabinoid compounds were first discovered in the cannabis plant. We have an endocannabinoid system because we discovered the way these cannabinoids affect. Well, we don't have it because of that reason, but it's called endocannabinoid because, well, one, science determined that these plant chemicals have a direct influence on this particular wiring system. And it's called endocannabinoid because it's within us. It's our own system. Our body actually produces its own cannabinoids, one of them, which is a primary one, is called anandamide. And anandamide is, that means bliss in Sanskrit. But that said, Ylang actually contains cannabinoids that have the ability to affect both CB1 and CB2 receptors, both of which are in the endocannabinoid system. Now, I want to say this much. When I talk about the olfactory system, I'm talking that we have between 500 and 700 olfactory receptors in the body. The endocannabinoid system has 3. That's how significant the olfactory system is. And at the same time, the endocannabinoid system is also, those receptors are also G-coupled protein receptors. And so that means that these are working together. And as is, they also have an influence on the endogenous opiate system. So the point to all of this is because it has the ability to influence the production of anandamide, which is that bliss hormone, it has the ability to kind of just bring us into that just very calming. That's the reason why it can help you sleep, because it just helps to de-escalate the pressure. Okay? It's a very impactful oil. It has the ability to reduce blood pressure. If you're taking blood pressure medication, you really don't want to mix this. And if you're going to use this with blood pressure medication, please make sure that you are double checking your blood pressure every single day at the same time. You want to make sure that you have, because the blood pressure changes depending on, so if you wake up in the morning, it's probably the best time to check your blood pressure, because you're just waking up and you're calm, and you can get a reading then. And when you start doing that at the same time every single day, and you're using Ylang, you can, and when you start to see the reduction in your blood pressure, because it will begin to come down, then you want to probably work with your doctor to make some adjustments to the medication, would be my suggestion. That would be how I would use Ylang if that's your choice, with mixing it with your medication. The other thing about Ylang is it, because of the components themselves, it has a tendency to be irritating to the skin tissue. This would be, how do I want to say this? I guess the irritation that you can, I don't necessarily see it burning. It can cause a tingling. That much I do know. I've had that experience, but and maybe you might break out in a rash. And what I'm trying to do right now is trying to find a way to explain why it causes that, other than to say that it has, because of its influence on the endocannabinoid system, which is going to directly impact the immune system, because now we can, relax. That would signify that because you've been so stressed, which if you were alive on planet Earth in 2019, you're living with stress. You're living with stress. There's emotional distress, a considerable amount of emotional distress. A lot of us are facing many, many changes. And of course, then there's the environmental factors. So to de-escalate the body potentially could actually cause an irritation, because there's going to be a push of toxins out of the body, but it can't go through the lymph system because the lymph has stagnated. So the idea here is to, the best bet would be to take a bath in it if you're going to use it, or use a carrier, is how I would say that. But you don't want to use it on don't put it directly on any kind of damaged skin either, because you're going to irritate the fool out of it. So that's what I want to say about Ylang. It's a lovely oil, fragrance wise. It does come with a constituent that is, besides being an insect repellent, it also, I just flashed to, I was just, sorry, I just had a flash there because I was going to say something about another constituent, but that's tomorrow's oil. Anyway, but it does also, but the germacrine in it, that is, besides being an insect repellent, also is a type of pheromone that plants put out to attract. And so that's one of the reasons why they would actually use Ylang. If they're going to use their whole essential oil, they may just use germacrine in perfumes as a pheromone, as an attractant. But that's one of the things about it, and that's how the plant uses it. So it's interesting. So it's designed to keep those away that aren't beneficial, and as well as pull them in, the ones that are beneficial. Think about that. Think about that being your magic weapon. I'm going to keep you away, but I want you to come here, right? Think about that one. All right. Anyway, thanks for playing, you guys. Thanks for being here. Until tomorrow, which is day 28, Sage. And like I said, I still owe you, and there will be an extra one. So this will go through Thursday, the 10th of October, 10/10. All right. See ya.